I remember studying World War One, and there's footprints where Gavrilo Princip in Sarajevo.
Yeah.
How was Gavrilo Princip seen when you were growing up? Was he a hero, or was he a bad guy, or was he just kind of a person?
Like everywhere else, for some people, the terrorists, from other people, they're heroes.
Depends on which side you're on. Right?
Exactly. To these days, like over there, like 70 years after that, Gavrilo Princip for their region, for whole region, for Yugoslavia, was hero.
If one man can be remembered as both a hero and a terrorist, imagine what that meant in a continent already armed for war.
Europe in 1914 was not peaceful. It was a powder keg packed tight with rivalries, weapons, and alliances. All it needed was a spark. On the surface, royal weddings, grand parades, glittering capitals. Underneath, tension, fear, and 40 years of preparation for war.
Sophie, the heat is stifling, but the people, they seem welcoming enough.
He was wrong. That heat wasn't the weather. It was the friction of empires, and the spark was already walking toward it. World War I did not begin by accident. It was built slowly and deliberately through four powerful forces, remembered as MAIN.
Militarism. By 1914, European nations were not preparing for war, they were preparing to launch it. Armies expanded, navies multiplied, weapons stockpiled.
The Germans add one battleship, we add two.
War was no longer something you reacted to. It was something you had to win before it began. Speed became everything. Mobilize first, strike first, or be crushed. War plans were written years in advance. Rail schedules were timed to the minute. Once mobilization started, stopping meant disaster. Military leaders gained influence over governments. Generals planned, politicians followed. By the summer of 1914, Europe was armed, trained, and waiting. Not for peace, but for a reason. Germany did not fear war. It believed a rising empire must prove its power, and believed strength was the price of admission. Alliances. Europe was tied together by promises meant to prevent war, and they did the opposite. Nations signed treaties pledging mutual defense. If one went to war, the others were obligated to follow. Austria-Hungary stood with Germany. France stood with Russia. Britain was bound to protect Belgian neutrality.
We have a treaty with Belgium. France has a treaty with Russia. Pull one thread and the whole continent unravels.
These agreements turned Europe into armed camps, watching one another, waiting. Diplomacy now had a deadline. Once one nation mobilized, others had to respond, or risk fighting alone. A local conflict could no longer stay local. It would trigger a continental war. Imperialism. Europe's rivalries were not confined to the continent. They stretched across the globe. Powerful nations competed for colonies, raw materials, and prestige. Africa, Asia, and the world's sea lanes became prizes in a global contest for power. Empires expanded not just for wealth, but for status. To fall behind meant weakness. To lose territory meant decline. Each gain by one empire felt like a threat to another. Suspicion grew. Resentment deepened. By 1914, European nations did not trust one another because they had spent decades competing everywhere else. Imperialism turned rivalry into hostility and ensured that peace, even in Europe, was fragile.
Some damn foolish thing in the Balkans.
Otto von Bismarck was not guessing. He was warning. Nationalism, loyalty to nation, burned hottest in southeastern Europe, especially in the Balkans. Empires ruled over many different ethnic groups, but those people did not see themselves as imperial subjects. They saw themselves as nations. Serbs and other Slavic groups demanded independence and the right to govern themselves. Austria-Hungary saw this nationalism as an existential threat. If one group broke free, others would follow. In the Balkans, nationalism was not just pride. It was revolutionary, and sometimes violent. By 1914, tension between Serbia and Austria-Hungary was constant. The region did not need a reason for conflict. It was already waiting for a spark. The 28th of June, 1914, Sarajevo. The heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne rode through the city in an open car. The visit itself was a provocation. Sarajevo was part of Bosnia, territory recently annexed by Austria-Hungary, and many Serbs saw imperial rule as occupation. Gavrilo Princip was not acting at random. He believed violence could free his people and weaken an empire he saw as illegitimate. When the driver made a wrong turn and stopped near the Latin Bridge, Princip did not hesitate.
For Serbia, for the future.
2 shots. Archduke Franz Ferdinand was dead. So was his wife, Sophie. To Serbia's nationalists, the act was resistance. To Austria-Hungary, it was an attack on the empire itself.
Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia and turned to Germany. In Berlin, the Kaiser did not hesitate.
I have hastened to assure His Majesty that he may rely upon Germany's full support. We shall stand faithfully by Austria-Hungary, as is required by the obligations of our alliance and by our ancient friendship.
The spark hit the powder keg. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia.
An ignoble war has been declared against a weak country. The indignation in Russia, shared fully by me, is enormous. I foresee that very soon I shall be overwhelmed by the pressure brought upon me and be forced to take extreme measures which will lead to war.
Germany saw Russia move. Germany declared war on Russia and France. German troops marched through neutral Belgium.
Germany has committed a flagrant violation of the law of nations. We are bound by solemn obligations to uphold the neutrality of Belgium. I have thought it right to summon the army and navy of my kingdoms to aid and support our ally.
A European crisis became a global conflict. The lights went out across Europe. As the war expanded, powerful leaders shaped its direction.
War has been declared. We shall wage it without weakness and without faltering.
Every man who really loves America will act and speak in the true spirit of neutrality, which is the spirit of impartiality and fairness and friendliness to all concerned.
Personalities, pride, and power now guided the war as much as weapons.
One gunshot in Sarajevo did not cause World War I. It exposed everything that was already waiting to explode. Alliances snapped into place, mobilization timetables began to run, and Europe marched toward a war it believed would be short. It wasn't. Because once the fighting began, war itself changed. In the next chapter, we move from why the war started to how it was fought. Trenches, machine guns, poison gas, tanks, submarines. A war where technology outpaced strategy, and survival depended less on heroism than endurance. This is World War I, not as leaders imagined it, but as soldiers endured it.